Welcome to the Loonie Lineup podcast with your hosts, Colby Honey Badger Chawley and Mike the Wolf Young.
What's up, our fellow lunatics? Welcome to our second episode of the Loonie Lineup podcast. In today's episode, we're going to be talking everything fantasy football. We're talking history. That's our history. Successes, failures, draft order ideas, punishments for losers, keeper leagues versus fresh draft leagues, PPR versus non-PPR, draft strategies, some fun rules, fantasy tips, and that's about it. Colby, you want to start us off here with anything you want to say?
Sure. I think it's fun to have a good mix. Usually people are in multiple leagues. The more hardcores get up into the bigger numbers. I know you and I are both in about 5 to 7 leagues each, all different formats. I'm a big fan of keeping a good variety. Have a standard league, have some ones with some unique positional requirements. Dynasty leagues are a really fun new thing that are getting more popular. I'm in my first dynasty league this year, in fact, actually. And so I don't really know particularly what to expect, but I do notice that the strategies are quite a bit different. This is what I know. One thing I noticed right off the hop in dynasty leagues is quarterbacks are going in the first round. There's a big rush, especially in a super flex league, like the one I'm in. 2 quarterback positions possible, right? So pretty much unanimously across mock drafts, we're seeing, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson going in the top 3 every time.
All right. Yeah, that makes complete sense, especially when you have a guy that's putting up anywhere from 25 to 40 points within a week. You're going to want to have a second player like that on your team when it's not the sole Lone Ranger going on. So that makes sense.
Do you have a favorite kind of league?
I'm starting to really enjoy the keeper leagues, but I don't the keeper league that I'm in right now is only a 2 keeper league. I like to go up to about 4 players for keepers.
Yeah.
But
our keeper league's 4, and it's a fun format. Keeps the core, right? So
yeah, exactly. For me, it's a lot of it has to come down to sometimes, don't get me wrong, a fresh draft league is always fun because you get to fight for those players. You get to fight for those top 12 picks and hope that you have a good draft spot. And then when it comes to a keeper league, I don't know what your format's like in a lot of your leagues, but in mine, we're using the inverse success from last season that kind of like the NFL does. So last year I actually won my
for draft
league.
order.
Yeah, for draft order. So I actually won my league. So there's no chance in hell I'm getting G&T, unfortunately. But
right,
I think it's still a very fun format. And in that keeper league, I'm not too upset because I'm still walking away with Jonathan Taylor and Jahmyr Gibbs. So it works out for me in that.
In our keeper league, one of the keeper leagues is we keep 4 players, full PPR, the ability to trade draft picks, but same thing. I was fortunate to win last year, so I will have the 12th pick in that one. So I can, all the really high-end, exciting rookies that could probably kiss goodbye. But that being said, my keepers in that league this year, I have Jahmyr Gibbs, Lamar Jackson, AJ Brown, and then I need to make a decision whether I keep Henry and have the stack between Jackson and Henry, or do I move on from Henry due to age and keep Chase Brown? Tough decision.
Tough decision. Are you leaning any which way, or?
I felt the stack I had with Henry and Jackson was lethal. Considering how strong that offense is, basically every time they get into the red zone, I'm going to be scoring points.
Yeah.
Obviously you lose out to some field goals sometimes, but if we're on the 1 yard line, either Jackson throws it or rushes it or Henry's punching it in.
Yeah.
And it just stacked up over the whole season and ended up being a good play. One of the intriguing things I like this year is possibly with getting a Saquon and Jalen Hurts stack. I think that could be deadly too, because Hurts is going to rush, Saquon could rush, or he throws it.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad call. Getting those stacks is an interesting strategy. I guess talking strategies now, though, any specific strategies you like to start, you usually aim for, or anything different you're doing this year?
Nothing out of the ordinary. I find I try to zig where people are zagging. One of the examples of that a lot of people go wide receiver heavy early. I find in this year's draft there's a long list of very good receivers that still have value in the 3rd to 6th round. So I've always been a believer in having a running back stable. I've never been a zero running back kind of guy. I just find that when you get into the midseason and injuries start, having elite running backs with big workloads end up being better to have. It's not out of the ordinary for me to take, my first 2 picks as running backs.
Yeah,
it's just not. No, and you get the 2 there's not a long list of workhorse backs anymore. I mean, back 10 years ago, we had about a dozen bell cows. I'd say about now we've got about 4, maybe 5.
Yeah, and it's the way the league's kind of changing too. I think having so many mobile quarterbacks in the league changes that workhorse mentality for a lot of the running backs, because you have essentially 2 running backs in the backfield at all times. So it causes an interesting dynamic. But I do agree. I like the having 2 running backs to start. At very least, one of my top 2 picks is going to be a running back, and if I have to reach for one to make that happen, then that's what's going to happen. Because if you stock up on 2 wide receivers off the hop, you're really not setting yourself up for much success, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at like these. You start swinging into the 3rd, late 3rd, early 4th. All the elite guys are gone. Like, there's no more, reliable week by week guys. They get scooped up. So at least stacking up on a couple of guys early, and then maybe grabbing maybe a rookie or 2 down the stretch to see maybe someone breaks out. And then obviously every year it's this common theme. We have a waiver wire that ends up, you're going to get 2 or 3 superstars out of it. So we never know who that is. And it always ends up being somebody you don't expect.
Yeah.
So, keeping an eye out for those guys. Right. But it always ends up, when you get to the end of the season, the guys that start losing out on running back performance usually end up willing to overpay for one. And then if you have a good stable, you can fill other holes with making those trades.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the big things is a lot of people go in after their draft and they think that that's it. That's all the work they have to do. And you're not winning a league that way. That's just your starting place. If you start and finish with the same league you drafted, I can almost guarantee you're not winning your league. And that's just it's just not going to happen. Unless you somehow pull some kind of magic off and you get beyond lucky. But every time
the stars align and everybody's good.
Yeah, every time I've ever won a league, it hasn't been, my team's been 70% drafted or even 50% drafted, and the rest either waiver wire pickups or trades. So
sure. Yeah, I'm in one really interesting format, a league I've been in for about 10 years now, maybe more actually, but it's an interesting format that's I've never seen before, but we've always kept the same rules, and it's standard scoring with 4 receiver spots and no flex. Now that's an interesting league, but one of the most important parts of that league is that the quarterbacks are buffed. Instead of 4 points per touchdown pass, it's 6. I find it a very interesting way. Well, one, you're buffing your quarterback, so it makes them more valuable. So you want to get a good one. And waiting on a quarterback in that league is not a good idea. And then because there's only 2 spots for running back per roster, no flex, you want a couple good running backs. It just evens the playing field out for the positions.
Yeah.
It makes it for an interesting, go every year because, with standard scoring as well, guys like Amon-Ra aren't as valuable, right? Yeah. So being very, very aware to be drafting guys that score touchdowns is important. Just because you can get a guy that gets 10 catches for 80 yards and that's it, you're not a big touchdown guy, he's not nearly as valuable. So you got to be a bit smarter with your picks. Those are fun ones to be in.
Yeah, and just knowing what type of league you're in is such a huge factor that's going to come into play, because if you go into a league and you don't know if it's PPR, half PPR, full PPR, whatever you're going into, and then you start drafting players, well, that's a big mistake, because like you just said there, like if you're getting those guys that are just getting the receptions but not the touchdowns.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're getting 80 yards and you can have a top receiver that would normally in PPR be getting 15 to 18.
Yeah.
Right. As opposed to, if you're getting, you can have 20 catches for 60 yards. You're getting 6 points.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's just, yeah, it's all about I think we both learned from failures we've had in the past, and unfortunately, some of those seasons just don't go your way. And that's one of the big things to keep note of is what league are you in and what's your strategy for that league?
Why don't you tell me some of your favorite draft order ideas for determining the order every year?
Oh, okay.
I know we've been in a couple leagues where we've done a couple fun things.
Yeah. So yeah.
I find it's always very important to try and keep it as random as possible. There's obviously ones you can do that are a bit more fun and engaging, but never end up being random. So, like, for example, I've seen people do a 40-yard dash. Well, it's not even playing field. You could usually pick who's going to get the first pick before it even starts. Right?
Oh, exactly. Right. Yeah. So I think draft order ideas I think the draft is such an important part of the game. And like when you're just doing a regular standard, it randomly picks for you, you find out 30 minutes before the draft. Well, what's the fun in that? Like, I like moving the draft order a little bit early. I like having the fun
a little bit of time to prepare and
getting together with everyone, seeing what the plan is, or even if you're just virtually getting together, just something to make the season more enjoyable for everyone and more interactive. So I know you and me, we did this last year, and I love this idea. I've done it before. I'm doing it actually again for one of my leagues this year, is the old Super Smash Bros. Draft. And for those of you who don't know, essentially what you do, or what we do anyways, is we type in everyone's name into ChatGPT, get them to assign each of us a random fighter from Super Smash Bros. And set up a tournament bracket. And we always go, the winner gets to choose first or 12th pick, and then second place gets the ladder, and everyone else gets their position in the Super Smash Bros. Thing. It's engaging.
Yeah, and one thing to note, it's totally random because it is computer generated, and it's just the computer players playing against each other. It makes it an exciting thing. We've done similar versions of that with Royal Rumbles on WWE.
Yeah.
And then you just stream the game, and everyone is cheering on their guy. It's hilarious. Bunch of grown men screaming at the televisions.
Yeah, exactly. It's just having people scream at something that you have zero control over. It's just like watching a football game, and that's part half the fun, right? Doubt. So, that's one of the ones I like. I do like the combine idea. For those of you who are legal to drink, then you can do little beer Olympics combine. So throw some flip cups, some beer pong, some everything else, and you have to basically earn your spot. You have to battle for your wits, and that takes away a little bit of the randomness, but also not everyone's always going to win at the same thing. So you gotta really earn your spot, and I like those ideas. Other things I like doing is keeping it all football, and we'll do like a Madden tournament. And so everyone, basically you go in and everyone gets their team, gets assigned a team, however we want to do it. And then you just, again, battle it out, see how you're going to do. Let's play some Madden, right?
We've had one before too, where we, for the US Open, if you can get your league organized in time, early summer, where you can assign everybody a random golfer out of the top 12 rated into the US Open. Everyone gets randomly assigned a golfer, totally random. So you might get Scotty Scheffler, right? But you know what? You still got to win the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then we could just go in order from purse from each golfer. Yeah, that's a fun one.
That is, Again, it's all about that's one of the fun ones about just the randomness, is just letting basically fate decide and hoping for the best, but getting angry at a TV. So why not?
So I guess shifting gears from the beginning of the season, what are some of your favorite punishments that you've seen?
Well, I think my favorite punishment is one that we have in our league. Unfortunately, we have so many people that are from different cities and stuff like that it's hard to always organize the punishments.
Of course.
They don't always happen, which is, not the end of the world, but when they do happen, it's a lot of fun. So we have, my favorite punishment that we've ever done is go on a date with a blow-up doll. So, so the person had to walk into a restaurant of our choosing. Everyone else is sitting at a table nearby is the peanut gallery. And they have to walk in holding hands with their blow-up doll. They have to order a meal, order a drink, and sit for a duration of a date with their
blow-up doll gets a meal.
Yeah, the blow-up doll gets a meal. They got to take it home, but the blow-up doll gets
humiliating.
A meal.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, so that's probably my favorite one we've ever done. How about yourself?
Well, I got to give my hats off to my buddy Chris, who actually did one this year for the 4 receiver league I mentioned earlier. Now, this one takes a little bit particular kind of dedication. However, in that league, what we do is we give you an option between paying for the team party the following year with a minimum, I believe it was $250. So food, drinks, snacks, like all that kind of stuff. Or you can take the cheap way out and do something humiliating. It's a good way to keep options, but his punishment this year, which is elaborate, was he was required to take a Greyhound bus to Edmonton and take a photograph beside the pirate ship. Now, the league covered the expenses. So again, it's a cheap option, but it's a whole day thing. He went to Edmonton, cruised around West Ed, got his photo, and rode the swans in the water, and then got the bus home all in like a day. And he was a champ about it. So part of the thing is that he had to document everything the whole way.
Yeah.
And post it on his social media. I believe we had another clause in there or something like that. He had to have like some ridiculous outfit looking really touristy.
Oh, that's good.
Like bucket hat, Hawaiian shirt, all that stuff. And like a champ, every single photo he's smiling in.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah, I think he mucked about 15 beers on his way up and back. So good for him.
Good.
Hats off to that guy.
Yeah, I got two other funny ones. I haven't done them before, haven't had them implemented in the league, but I've always thought they were fun ideas. One of them is you have to go down to downtown and you have to put a tin can in front of you and do whatever skill you have, and you can't leave until you make X amount of dollars. So people walk by, you have to throw your change in, and you have to. It can be something small, $5-10 or whatever, because sometimes you just don't have a skill, but you got to keep out holding up until you reach that goal. And the other one is an all-time classic, and I think everyone's kind of seen this one online, but it's the pancakes or the burger challenge, where you have to go to a 24-hour establishment and you have to stay for the full 24 hours, except for say you're going to McDonald's, every burger you eat knocks off an hour of your duration there. So it's just a cruel, unusual way to spend 24 hours or less. So
yeah, that's wild. I don't think I'd ever do that. Yeah, but that's the craziest. But so, okay, well, now that we're kind of back on the topic here, why don't you tell me some of your favorite picks you've had in the past for fantasy? Maybe give us a little background on it. Tell us, if you can remember the year it was, maybe the situation about when you drafted him, and, did it result in much success?
Yeah, actually.
Or it could be just a guy you just liked having. Maybe he didn't win that year, but he was a dark horse and came out and surprised everybody.
Yeah, no, actually 2017 was a really good year for me. I ended up getting Todd Gurley in the 3rd round.
And yeah, that was a good one.
That was arguably his best season in my opinion.
Yeah.
And with Todd Gurley on my lineup, I actually ended up winning that season. So yeah, no, yeah. I have that was probably my best pick. That was probably my most memorable. It's always nice to get a guy that's not a 1st or 2nd round pick that ends up being your workhorse and taking you all the way. So yeah, what about you?
So a couple of the leagues I'm in, nobody listening to this would be surprised to hear from me. I got 2 guys that have kind of always stuck out as my Hall of Fame. Le'Veon Bell in 2016, his best season as a pro, absolute monster every week. I did win that year as well. And then another year in 2013, I also won this year. This is probably the best pick I've ever made, was Josh Gordon with my last pick. So Josh Gordon ended up sliding in his sophomore season, even though he didn't have the greatest rookie season, but he had a lot of off-field problems. He liked the Chiba too much, just couldn't get off the Chiba. And he had a 2-game suspension to start the season. It might have been 3, for sure 2 games. So in the last round, he was just kicking around there, and I thought I'm going to take a stab at him. Well, he led the league in receiving yards that year with missing, I think, 3 games. It was like 1,600 yards, and an absolute freak. And so for value as my last pick, to have him lead me to a championship, he's probably my favorite pick I've ever had. And for a decade following that. No matter how much problems he had, whatever team picked him up as a free agent, I did anything I could to get him. He just never could replicate it again. But
yeah, I remember
still
you
in my
trying to
heart,
reach
Josh.
for him a couple years
Every
later.
time.
Yeah.
I'd trade for him. I'd overpay. I'd do whatever it took.
He was your
and
boy.
He just never was the same. He was my boy. So shout out to Josh Gordon. Thanks for the great memories.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess going from there, if we're talking about all of his successes, what are some big failure moments that you can remember? What are some regrets that you've had that would just be, you wish you could have him back, but you can't?
Kyle Pitts. That's like the whole world can agree. No, I've been the victim of it's Kyle Pitts' year since he's been drafted, and I have nobody to blame but myself. I do regret them, but I will admit he looks juicy this year again. He looks juicy. He's got a new quarterback, a better offense. He's getting wide receiver reps. I sound so stupid right now.
You're like
trying
a
to
dog
explain
chasing
myself
his tail,
again.
trying to
It's
explain.
ridiculous. I fully admit it. It's absolutely foolish.
I get what you're
But he
saying.
is getting wide receiver reps.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. It'll be interesting, and they have a new quarterback situation there, so like you never know.
Yes, they do.
So, and Penix said that he likes throwing him. So who knows?
I know. I know, but every other quarterback likes throwing to that guy. But old Kyle Pitts, you're in the doghouse still until you prove me otherwise. I know, but the thing is about Kyle Pitts though is every year is ADP floats a little bit like low, and you're kind of like, ooh, that's actually not bad. Maybe I can get a top 5 tight end in the 6th, 7th round, but you shouldn't be touching that guy before the 10th.
Yep. Makes sense.
Maybe take him as a backup this year. Maybe I just scoop a good one as a safety net.
Yep.
And hold on to the dream.
Fair enough. I don't blame you. Yeah, I gotta say, I know that for me personally, my biggest failure player, and it just seems that every time that I draft this guy, he gets injured. And every time I don't draft him and I have the opportunity, well, he doesn't get injured that year. And CMC is just, I think he's so talented.
He's a good example.
I think he's so talented. There's nothing that can be said otherwise from that. He is so talented when it comes to running, finding the hole, catching, receiving, playing as a receiver. Like he has it all, except for the durability. And I am terrified. And maybe if he does come to me, who knows what I'll do this year? But I'm doing my best to avoid that one. But
I always compare CMC to blackjack.
Yeah.
You could hit or you lose. The guy is a monster when he's healthy. He's one of the best to do it as far as fantasy goes. I find the risk is so high now, but he is being drafted a little bit later, sometimes even getting out of the first round. I don't know if that's necessarily a mistake to be taking him in the late first. I mean, people are making arguments you could take him early first still. He is a gamble. I do think, however, if you take Christian McCaffrey, you're going to need to overpay for Garendo this season to have his handcuff.
Yeah.
The Niners offense is built for running backs. Any running back who's been in the starting job, Mason last year, even Garendo a couple games, they succeed. They seem to have a system built for a running back to succeed.
They have a good plug and play system. So yeah,
they
that makes sense.
Yeah, well, the offense is strong and it's wide. They can spread the ball to a ton of guys there, so it takes pressure off every position. But yeah, no, I do think that if you take McCaffrey this season, you need to overpay for Garendo to have that handcuff, which may be because, even if you don't get Christian McCaffrey production, you're still going to get an RB1 production at a Garendo.
Exactly. And another thing to be said there is if you are going to CMC and if you're getting CMC in the late first, and then you also have the snake draft order, and you can get another running back in the second, that alleviates a little bit of the pressure of the risk side of CMC, because you still have two of the top 10 running backs essentially in your bench. So you don't have, but then again, you're sacrificing your second pick if CMC goes down, because now you don't have a second. So it's literally the internal battle of what you want to do there. But yeah, I'm afraid of him. I'm not really chasing him like you might.
He burned me last year.
Yeah.
So
like I said, every time that I've ever drafted him, it's been one of his bad seasons. And then I avoid him like the plague the next year, and all of a sudden he's unreal. So what do I know?
Yeah.
But also on the topic of failures, like I want to elaborate a little bit more on this. Is rather than just player failures, like what are some strategies that have caused you some detriment in NFL seasons in your past?
I would say in recent years, maybe not as much of a failure because, well, I mean, I have failed in the past with this, but I've been learning from my mistake is waiting too long for a quarterback. It's such a common theme across, experts that say you can wait on a quarterback, right? Because there's so many of them. What I've found is the waiting on a quarterback and taking a guy, in the 8th to 10th round and you're getting a bottom 10 quarterback. Like, yeah, you can make the argument he still can get 15 to 20 points a week, but I found that getting a quarterback that is elite, like a top 5, like a Jackson or something like that, ends up paying off. I find he's worth the pick because you're going to have weeks he's going to get 30, 35 points. It's going to happen, and that wins you weeks.
Yeah.
So sometimes that 3rd round pick, even though you might be missing out on a wide receiver 1 or even a high-end running back, a reliable quarterback is almost a safer play, especially since running back durability is a common theme.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's burnt me in the past before, but on the other end of it is I also find reaching for quarterbacks can also cause that same problem.
I agree. It's of balance.
You need to find that balance, and getting one of the things that I've caught myself doing in the past is when you start seeing 1, 2, 3 quarterbacks go off the board, people panic, and I've accidentally thrown my strategy out the window to make sure I get a quarterback when it's like, oh, I could still get my strategy, get my guy, and then go with the quarterback in my next round. So it's all about finding that balance, and it's a hard thing to do.
Is there a guy you're targeting this season?
There's a few. If I was to reach, I would probably be reaching for Lamar.
Yeah, me too.
That's my reach. If I was to kind of play it in the safer area, I'm interested in Caleb Williams. I'm interested in Bo Nix.
Me too.
And there's a couple of guys that saw the tail end of last season that I do think they're gonna be pretty damn good. And I'm talking about Michael Penix and JJ McCarthy. I think they're going to be. They have the weapons there. They have the year buffer to figure out what's going on. They have some field experience in the NFL now. So I just think that it's going to be fun to watch those guys. So I wouldn't be upset if I had one of those guys. But then if I was to go with one of those guys, I'd probably be hoping to get a sleeper. So
sure.
I'd be, for example, if I wanted to go with the Richardson route and pray to God something magically happens this year as a backup just for, this is my boomer bust.
Right.
So if I do go that route, safety wise, the Baker Mayfields, the Bo Nixes, those guys, you're going to be good with. But if I'm playing a little bit more on the dangerous side, I'm going to go for 2 dangerous players and hope one of them pans out. And if both of them pan out, great, I have trade ammo. So
yeah, and I mean, I agree with your point about McCarthy. Minnesota's offense is built for a quarterback, just like the Niners' offense is built for running back. They moved on from Darnold, who had a great season, and they've said, no, McCarthy's still our guy. I find that as a pretty interesting indicator to what could happen here. He's got all the weapons. He's got Hawkinson. He's got Addison. He's got Jefferson. 2 good running backs, Mason and Jones. That he has the formula to succeed in his year 2. He's had a full year behind studying NFL film under NFL coaching. I see that as being something that works out, honestly.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of flack for that because I actually have him in the top 10. I have him above Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
And that's
honestly, Jaden Daniels, that one's going to be an interesting one because it all depends on what's going on with Terry McLaurin. So it's So I might agree with you there if Terry's not there, if Scary Terry's not there, but it all depends on. I will disagree with you if he is, but
sure.
Yeah, who knows what's going to happen there.
And what are your thoughts about the tight end position this year? Seems as though we've got about 4 elite guys.
I'm happy you brought that up. I was going to ask you the same thing because I am interested in the tight end, but I can guarantee you I am not going to be reaching for a tight end this year. That's one of the things that I find, like, I think the top 3 tight ends every year, they might give you the points that you need. But even in that, like, the tight end position is not built for stacked fantasy points. You're going to get in, like, odds and ends weekends out of them, and you're going to get some points. But, like, if you're going to compare apples to apples here, if you have a running back that's consistently good and you're getting a running back in round 3 versus a tight end in round 3 or something along those lines, top tier tight ends, you are lucky almost to get a 20-point week on a regular basis out of them, whereas a top tier running back, you're pushing for 30s. So you're sacrificing 10 points at an early draft pick, one of those guys. And there's, like, apart from the top 3 guys, which is still up for debate in a lot of people, but, like, when it comes to it, without those top 3 guys, the other ones, when I look at the tight end position, I'm looking for a guy that's going to give me a steady 10 to 15 points. That's my goal out of a tight end position, and I'm hoping to get them in the later round. Like, if I can get a tight end in 8th, 9th, 10th round, that'd be incredible for me. But it all depends on what the draft board's looking like. So if I have to get a tight end a little bit earlier, I will. There's a couple guys that I like that are falling in. Like, I like Tucker Kraft.
Sure.
I think I like Njoku. I even like Ingram. Like, there's guys in the later rounds that you can get that are going to give you, if I can get, like I said, 10 points out of a tight end every week, I'm a happy man, because that's what my goal is for the tight end position. I want my big points coming from the guys that are going to be consistently giving me big points, and that I want those big points to be over 20.
Sure. And I mean, like, it's a numbers thing too. Like, over the past 10 seasons, we've had 2 guys repeat as number 1 tight ends over year to year.
Yeah.
It's Kelsey when he was in his prime, and Gronkowski.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 guys that have repeated, and they're literal Hall of Famers, probably 2 of the best to do it.
Few and far between. Like, Kittle might be in that same conversation, but
yeah, and even he is, like, on a year to year, a little bit different every year, right? Sure, like last year he actually had a pretty good season, but the season before he was overdrafted and didn't produce.
Yeah, and he had to step up because CMC wasn't there. Like, yes, they still had
Sam
a good
Laporta last year.
Oh yeah, Sam Laporta is a perfect example of what can happen when you reach for a tight end.
Overpaid. Like, what was he going, late 2nd round last year?
He was going late 2nd round, early 3rd for the most part, at least in the mock drafts I was doing in the leagues that I was in. And
he didn't score touchdowns.
Yeah, he didn't. And, like, why would he when you have Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown? Like, you have so many weapons on that offense, yet people were still overpaying.
Yeah, I still see Bowers as being probably a top 3, no doubt. But it is a risk because, again, year to year, it's very rare that the tight end repeats being the number 1 tight end unless your name is Travis Kelce or Rob Gronkowski.
Exactly.
And they're, Kelce is an interesting one because last season, all signs are pointing that this is his last year. He's lost a bit of weight in the offseason, but you know what? For me, I'm still not convinced to take him at his ADP. There's a lot going on in that guy's life right now. You're dating the biggest superstar in the world. You have one of the biggest podcasts in the world that's wildly successful. And you've already had your fun, right? So I'm not convinced. Like, he's not something definitely not something I'm reaching for, willing to take a big gamble on. Sure, if he falls far enough, I'll take a look at him. But
I think, like, I'm a little bit higher on Kelce this year. Like, last year I had him and he did produce, but he wasn't who he was.
No, of course,
I think coming off of back-to-back Super Bowl wins, you might celebrate with a couple pints here or there, and the guy put on a little bit of weight, but, like, I think that slowed him down just enough to cause him not to have his potential. But he shed that weight again, and it's only a year difference now. And I think I think Kelsey's still going to be a top 5 tight end. But again, like
and does Kansas City all of a sudden have this massive chip on their shoulder of trying to get vengeance after being humiliated?
That's exactly it. And it's just like Kansas City's play style, like ever since Tyreek Hill left, it's been it's been 10 to 15 yards, 10 to 15 yards,
Yeah.
10 to 15 yards.
Short
Consistently, the short plays, they eat a lot of clock. They don't score a lot, and that's why getting a KC player on your team is a little bit worrisome. But there are going to get, like, if you're in a PPR league, that's fantastic because if Kelsey's getting 10 to 15 targets his way and they're going for that, then perfect. That's a great guy to have on your team. So, yeah.
I like your idea about Evan Engram there in Denver now. Sean Payton's been historically friendly to tight ends in fantasy.
Yep.
Jimmy Graham, he was part of the reason that I think he actually picked up Taysom Hill and begun using him in that package format as a tight end here and there. Engram has always been a relatively consistent player in fantasy. And now he's going to be on a really good offense, right? They've paid Cortland Sutton, and they have RJ Harvey now, and they have Bo Nix, who's going to be a breakout star this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, and they have Dobbins.
I think Bo Nix last year had one of the best throws I've seen. It was against the Browns later in the season, and he threw it to Mims, and I think it was in the air for 65 yards, and it was an absolute rocket. Caught him in full stride. I saw that as a wicked sign of what's to come.
Yeah, I agree. And Mims is kind of a funny one too because he's not going to be heavily involved in conversations, but I think he's going to show up a little bit more this year. Last year he was kind of a late season secret weapon, but I think he's going to be involved this year.
I've kind of compared him in my notes to he's like Tyler Lockett now.
Yeah.
Tyler Lockett's going to have big weeks, and then he's going to have 3 or 4 where he's just a dud. Nothing you can do about it. So he's a flex play in my opinion, but at best, and maybe a plug and play once in a while if you need to, but he's too risky to start as like even a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1, certainly not.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're going to get big games out of him. It's going to happen. That's going to happen a few times next season. He's going to get downfield and he's going to get a 70, 80 yard TD.
Oh, exactly. Those are going to happen. We know Bo Nix is going to do it. So,
yeah.
All right, I'd love to know your opinion on moving on a little bit here. What do you like keeper drafts or fresh drafts more? What's the preference?
I would say a combo of both, honestly. I like having at least one league where I keep a core and it's like something you work on over years.
Yeah.
And I like having a league that redrafts every year. With the league I commission in, we redraft every year.
Yeah.
Right. I find it exciting. It resets everything. Instead of sometimes where it can literally take you years to claw out of a bad initial draft in a keeper league.
Yeah.
Shout out to Nate McLeod for being at the bottom of the barrel for several years until we redrafted. Sorry, Nate. But no, I do actually enjoy a redraft every year because it's a full reset. You can learn from your mistakes the previous year, and you're not as bound by your mistakes in previous ones.
Yeah,
you're not bound by them at all.
Exactly.
Unless you're like me and take Kyle Pitts over and over again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
they both have their benefits. I agree.
They do.
And then I know I already kind of touched on what we just spoke about there. So I guess moving on here, do you have a preference of PPR versus non-PPR?
So I actually think my favorite is half PPR for a number of different reasons. I do think that, receivers that are getting a high catch load, i.e. Amon-Ra, I know we mentioned him already, but, guys that are catching the ball 10 times a game, there should be some sort of reward for getting that kind of volume. Now, that being said, there's a lot of guys too that I'll use the same example of Amon-Ra because he gets 10 catches for 40 or 50 yards, and now he's all of a sudden like this wicked week. It almost doesn't seem as right. I like being rewarded a little bit of it. That's why the league I run, we do have PPR in our league.
Yeah, actually, the three leagues that I run, they're all half PPR. I think it's my favorite format as well. Yeah. I think the full PPR is it's too much of a reward for a catch, especially when you're thinking like, if a touchdown is worth 6 points in the standard league scoring system, and you're getting 6 catches to worth that just doesn't make sense to me. I think those 6 catches should be worth 3, and that just makes more sense to me. But I don't like having no points per reception. I just find that's just the point number just isn't enough. You don't get enough fun and value out of it. So.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I still enjoy a good PPR league, but yeah, it does drastically change strategy, I think. That's why when you look at rankings, it's pretty important to know whether is this a PPR ranking system, is this standard? But the half PPR seems to be my favorite.
Perfect. And then I guess moving on to the next thing here, and let's get into the really fun stuff here. What are some of your favorite draft strategies going into this year?
Well, one of the ones I like, and I think I touched on it earlier, but if I can get a hold of Saquon Barkley, who I still think is kind of he seems to be slipping the more I do these mocks right now. What you would assume is that after a season like last year's, he's going to be the unanimous number one. Now, maybe people are just getting a little bit wiser because it's so rare that they repeat. Chase appears to be the consensus number one overall. And it seems like Bijan's getting a little bit more love than Saquon right now due to age, injury history. But I'm still kind of leaning on the Saquon side, and probably because I'm biased, but Philly's got every tool for him. Proven winners, the best O-line in the league. It's undeniable. I find him just the safest. He's the safest pick. Now, if I was able to get a hold of Saquon early, look out for me to take Jalen Hurts with my swing, possibly my third round, depending on how high I was.
Yeah. No,
yeah, because if that swings back, and you can get a decent, you get a decent guy on the back end, well, you can get your third pick is only just a few backs. Like if you're in the fourth spot and Saquon falls to you, you might have a chance to get Hurts and somebody else. Exactly. Now you got to kind of know your league a little bit better, right? You got to know who likes who's drafting behind you. For example, like if a guy ahead of you is a big Buffalo fan, well, he's probably going to take Allen before Hurts, right? Obviously, it'd be pretty crazy, I think, to take Hurts over Lamar or Allen, in my opinion. But having that duo of Saquon and Hurts, you're going to be touching between those two players about 90%, maybe more, of Philadelphia's offense, which is crazy good. And they're going to score. They're going to win games. They get to the goal line. It's either going to be a touchdown pass by Hurts, a tush push, a quarterback rush, or Saquon's punching it in. Yeah. The other 10% is going to go to these backups that might slip in some packages here and there, or maybe some reversals or something like that.
Yeah.
But you're 90% of that offense you're going to touch, and he might be worth taking that extra bit.
Makes sense. No, and being an Eagles fan, that's kind of an easy one for you to kind of draw on the drawing board right now, because then you're getting two people that you're already going to be cheering for every week. So.
Oh yeah, we always want to have your, at least a couple guys from your squad, and especially if you got, the champs, right? So it's fun to have those. Saquon was just so exciting last year.
Saquon was fun.
Well, I thought in the one draft last year, I took him third overall, and people thought it was insane.
Yeah.
So, haha. Right. So.
Yeah. No, I agree.
What about you? Tell us yours.
I got a couple ones, but two that I'm kind of looking at right now is the back-to-back running back strategy. I've always been kind of a fan of that one, just because, as we've kind of touched base before, getting that stable is so important. And I just think there's a lot of depth in receiver this year. So getting those running backs early is kind of important in my mind. But it can handcuff you and it can hurt you. So you have to really have a game plan in place for what you're going to be doing in your later rounds, just because if you do go with the back-to-back running back strategy and you don't have some of those hidden gems that not a lot of people are looking at, or they're just not looking at the right way, that can really hoop your entire season, because just because you have two good running backs doesn't mean you're gonna win the league. You have to have the other surrounding weapons. So it's kind of a scary strategy, but I do like it. Again, on the fearful strategies, I am kind of liking a little bit of the rookie strategy going on this year.
Sure.
So with that being said, getting those guys that have such a high ceiling, because there's when it comes to certain players, what their ceiling is, right? You know where they're going. Jamar Chase had an incredible year last year. Mm-hmm. It's the only reason him and Joe Burrow weren't in the conversation for MVP very much was just because they lost. They kept losing. They couldn't buy a win if they wanted to. So, but their fantasy perspective, the ceiling that they hit, I don't see them hitting that many touchdowns and that many yards. And it's kind of unheard of to hit that ceiling again, and I just don't see that ceiling any higher for those guys.
Sure.
But with that being said, don't get me wrong, they're still phenomenal players and they're still great to have. Like, just because they might not hit their ceiling, they might be shy 30 points, whatever it is, right? Like, it's one of those things. So, like, getting some of the young bucks where you don't know their ceiling, again, it's a gamble. But if you have a keeper league, that's kind of the area that I'd be aiming for, is getting, like, if you're saying you're starting a fresh, brand new keeper league right now, I'd be going for the young guys. I'd be going for the GTs. I'd be going for the McCarthys. I'd be going for the Daniels. Like, going for those players that we just haven't seen their full potential yet. Because then you're setting yourself up for years. You don't have to worry about it.
Well,
as much.
in most leagues last year, I think Daniels either went in the last couple rounds or undrafted.
Exactly.
And he could have been a league winner last year for you.
100%.
So yeah, I mean, I do agree. I think that, every year there should be at least 2 bench spots that you have that you're taking a home run swing. And you know what? Week 4 or 5 roll around, these guys ain't doing anything, or there's no signs that there's any more workload to come. You can dump them, and then you can try and find a stud on the waiver wire. Maybe you get lucky.
Exactly.
Right. But there should be 2 spots on your bench where you're using as just an interchanging carousel to find the next stud.
Exactly. You should have that space left aside for them. Like, you need that because
And then ultimately, the beginning of your draft, you're finding value at trying to find value. I mean, last year, for example, Mike Evans getting drafted in, what was it, the 5th round?
Yep.
Another guy that was a potential league winner for you last year.
Drake London, another example, 4 or 5.
Drake
Everyone
London
thought that I was crazy. Josh Jacobs, I think, was going in the 7th round last year in some leagues.
Yeah, exactly. And now he's a 2nd round pick.
Yeah. So I think that's the beautiful thing about fantasy football is you could study your ass off day in, day out, and you could be entirely wrong about everything that you do. So
I've always said that I think that you're not going to win your league from the draft, but you can lose your league from the draft.
Oh, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't come in with a strategy, you don't get guys at the right spot and stuff like that, then you're just setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've seen it in your leagues too, where there's always a guy in every league that is slinging deals to everybody.
Yeah.
Like, probably at any given point has 6 to 8 transactions out pending.
Yeah.
To people, and he just swings and swings and swings, and you know what? Those grinders often are successful because of the fact that they are trying. You throw enough, shit at a wall, something will stick, right? So
exactly, something's gonna happen. Someone's gonna bite eventually.
Someone will bite, and
that brings me to the next point of that. Actually, is just people out there. You have to know what your trade is worth. Don't be going out there trying to trade, just for an example, and I doubt, well, actually, there's probably someone out there that probably has this trade planned out for the year already. It's going for like a Jamar Chase for a Terry McLaurin. It's just not going to happen. Don't waste anyone's time.
No, beat it, nerd. Yeah, beat it, nerd.
If you're going to be doing that, you need to be offering, and also the other thing is don't say, oh, I'll give you these 4 guys for this one guy, and you're giving me your garbage from your bench. Like, If you don't want it on your bench, I don't want it on mine, and you're taking away from players that I already have and I like. So if you're going to be offering trades out there, make them worth their time.
Yeah, I mean, like, sometimes you can get away with a bit of nonsense, or sometimes you can get away with somebody overpaying for a player.
Yeah.
But if you gain a reputation as someone who's just trading out junk nonstop, I don't even look at your trade anymore.
No. There's no point.
I don't look at it.
Time.
Yeah, waste my time. And then, that being said, towards the end of the season, you can find vulnerabilities in other teams.
Yep.
If you find a guy, like, let's say you have an excess of running backs. You got 4 guys on your team that are all number 1s, and you can't play all of them, right?
Yeah.
If you get close to the playoff run and you're willing to take the risk of not having as deep of a stable, but still having something back there, maybe you can trade, a top, 10 running back to get a top 10 receiver.
Exactly.
Maybe upgrade your quarterback, right? These are times where you can use that, and that's always why, going back to our running back stable strategy that we both agree on, I like using that as a tool towards the end of the season if I have too many of them, because you can't play all of them, so you might as well get value out of some of them.
Exactly.
Now,
get those
in
points
some cases, you're gonna get unlucky and you get riddled by injuries. It happens.
It
right?
does.
But it's like you see it in the NHL every year. Not as common in football, but the NHL is a perfect example. The teams that are cusp contenders. To go all in requires them to move, some draft capital to pick up, a high-end player to make the deep run.
Exactly.
Right? And it obviously is a little trickier to trade draft picks in NFL, but or for fantasy, but at least you can trade assets that you are just going to be sitting on your bench for useful ones.
Exactly. All right, we're starting to run out of time here, so I guess we'll wrap up the segment here with just wrap up your fantasy tips for 2025. What do you got for the viewers out there?
Don't cheap out on quarterbacks and don't cheap out on running backs. Zero running back strategy is dead. It's gone. Move on.
Yeah.
Except that you need an elite back to win in this league.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think my big tip for the year is don't reach for tight ends. There's plenty out there. Don't be that guy that's stacking 3 tight ends in your team either, but don't reach for them. Like you can get someone that's worth their value in a later round. Don't waste an early round pick on someone that's only getting you 10 to 15 points a week.
Absolutely. I think we can agree on that.
Awesome. Well, that's about it for us today. I guess everyone, if anyone's
let's tell them about the next episode.
Yep. If anyone's watching yet, we appreciate you coming by, and tune in next week for our fantasy mock draft. Me and Colby are going to be mock drafting together, and we'll be discussing how we're picking each pick and why we're doing it.
Sure. It's going to be exciting.
Perfect. All right. And with that is a wrap. See you guys next time.
Bye.